We are covering the 7 mistakes you want to avoid if you are thinking of purchasing a condo here in Vancouver or across the Lower Mainland. It is often a very exciting time when you have your pre-approval in hand and you're ready to get into the market, but you need to stick around for this entire video to understand these 7 pitfalls that can cost you a lot of money and stress down the line, from depreciation reports, understanding strata fees. Should I buy with a strata fee that is high or low? The overall footprint and the type of building that you are buying into are all things that need to be heavily considered, and you need to be represented to a point that your objectives can be met and that you're buying into a building that will give you a lot of confidence and will not be a pain in your wallet. My name is Kyle Mark, your Vancouver Realtor, and whether you're looking to buy, sell, relocate, or invest in my beautiful city, Vancouver, make sure you book that strategy call with me, especially if you're thinking of getting into the condo market. I'm super easy to get a hold of and I am here to help. So let's jump into the first mistake to avoid. And the first and biggest misconception I find with buyer consultations that I have is that buyers are always wanting to look into buildings with the lowest strata fee and avoid condos with a high strata fee. And that is a huge misnomer and something that needs to be addressed, and why it's number 1 on this list. There are 2 types of stratas that you can buy into, one that is reactive or one that is proactive. And usually a reactive strata is one you do not want to buy in, and some telltale signs that they are reactive is that they have very low strata fees, they may be self-managed, and their CRF is abnormally low. And the reason for that is there's no pre-planning. They are taking on repairs as needed. They're not increasing strata fees to be able to budget for future considerations. They're always voting down depreciation reports in the past, and that is something that you don't want to get into. And I understand property pricing here in Vancouver is extremely high, and anywhere you can save $1 is very important, but strata fees are something that is very key to a building. And I know that a lot of people think that the strata fees itself is going into nothing, but it is an insurance policy for you to help you with repairs such as window replacements, roof replacements, envelope and parkade replacements. If you do not have a strata that is being able to be proactive and understanding what's going on with the building, they're not going to be able to prepare for these things. And what that is going to mean, at some point, these strata fees aren't going to cut it, so they're going to have to be increased big time, and you're going to get hit with a massive special levy to help with any future major repair work. It is inevitable for the raising of strata fees over time. A building is aging, it needs to be cared for, and for you to protect your asset, you want to be able to make sure that you're in a strata that has good council members who can help you maintain this building properly, because if it is not maintained, perhaps you're saving money in the short term, but in the long term, you're really going to lose. When you go to try to sell that unit and things have not been maintained, there's no depreciation report history or anything like that, buyers are going to walk away from your building. And that's why I'm so happy that this year in 2024, the province has finally stepped in and made stratas with strata lots of 5 or more to have a depreciation report on every 5-year cycle. It is just crazy to me for how many stratas decide to walk away from depreciation reports in the past, literally have no idea what is going on with the building. So what a depreciation report is, the strata will hire an engineering company to look over every single aspect of the condo. So from the hallway carpets to the windows to the roof to the mechanical room to the parking stalls, everything will get a multi-page report. Sometimes they can be well over 100 pages depending on the size of the condo. They look at all the windows, the sealants, and they put together upwards of a 30-year timetable of how much life is on those assets, when they need to be repaired, in what generic area, and how much that's going to cost in present time. So what that does is it gives a report back to the strata on how they can budget for that, whether they want to increase strata fees 10% year over year, whether they want to contribute with special levies and strata fees, or essentially some do nothing at all, and that is a warning sign. You also want to see how the homeowners within the strata vote. If you're looking at the strata minutes and whenever there's a resolution and it continues to get denied, especially when it comes to maintenance of the building, I would run away from that building. That just means that the homeowners do not understand or not educated on how to take care of a building. You want to see that movement, and you want to make sure that people are in unison when it comes to being able to maintain the building properly. If you look at the strata minutes and you're noticing that there has been several votes with strata fees that are continuing to raise, it is likely that they are referencing something within the depreciation report that they are budgeting for, such as windows or a future roof replacement or envelope issues. It is much better to have incremental strata fee increases that you can budget for rather than being slapped with a $50,000, $60,000 special levy, which comes with its own challenges financially for you. If you are looking into a strata and say that the strata fees are higher than normal, but when you look into the minutes and they have replaced exterior doors, they've done the elevator, they've done waterproofing, they've done the roof, then you know that you have a lot of these big items that will last for 20, 30 years under control. So you can look at some of these minutes and understand that you're in a proactive strata. They are coming to the table and maintaining the building, and if you've bought in at the right time, you haven't had to pay for any special levies, and you just move on forward paying that strata fee and knowing that most of the major work has already been completed. I'm just having a possession date in a strata of mine, and that was the case. It was a 40-something-year-old unit, but the roof was done, the waterproofing was done, envelope issues were repaired, the balconies repaired. So that gave a lot of security for the new buyer, and knowing that moving forward, they're gonna have a bulletproof asset when it comes to their unit and how it was taken care of. Number 2 on the list is not evaluating the building quality of the strata that you are planning to move into. And what do I mean by this? Is the property wood frame? Is the property concrete? What are the pros and cons of both of those? For myself, I would take a concrete build over a wood frame all day. Personally, I have 2 rental properties in Mount Pleasant, and I bought them specifically because they were boutique, smaller concrete buildings. And why I chose that is for several reasons. A, with the concrete, you usually have an 8-inch slab between your neighbors on the top and bottom of you. You may even have some concrete walls on the units beside you. So for soundproofing, it is a lot better than a wood frame building. Concrete is a good insulator. So in the winter months, it can keep you a little bit warmer with its insulating properties. In the summertime, it keeps you a little bit cooler than a wood frame building. Knock on wood, if there is an earthquake here or some other type of disaster, a concrete build is going to give you a lot more security and protection than a wood frame building as well. Concrete builds are usually more expensive and more popular than your wood frame option. And then if you are looking into a wood frame building, waterproofing is very, very important in understanding what rain screen is. Waterproofing is crucial for you to understand and look into if you're buying into a wood frame condo in and around Vancouver. You also have to understand, if you are running your due diligence, has the waterproofing been done to the entirety or just a partial? Because sometimes a strata can only afford a partial waterproofing. So you need to understand and ask those questions. You may be wondering what waterproofing is, and it's a type of system that lets the plywood underneath the siding breathe. Back in the 90s, stucco started to get really popular here in Vancouver and across the lower mainland. Stucco was a product down in California, and you can identify it by having this concrete bumpy look on the exterior of buildings. And down in California, because it doesn't really rain, they would just spray it onto the plywood and it would be good to go just because of the temperature. When they started using those techniques and not using a waterproof system, they would spray the stucco onto the plywood, and it would not give the plywood enough room to breathe or let excess moisture out because it rains here so much. The stucco is porous, it can absorb water, and that would be transferred into the plywood sheathing and then the studs, and then you would have these buildings that are completely rotting out. So an easy way to identify if a building has been rain screened, if you look at the sections, usually on a floor by floor basis, there will be these horizontal lines or tracks of metal flashing. They can be, an inch or 2 inch in depth, and it will run across. And what that system is, essentially they put some sort of lath in behind the stucco, and there's a channel and there's a space between the stucco and the sheathing that will allow moisture to run down the flashing and outside of the building. So this allows any moisture to get out, and for the plywood underneath the stucco to be able to breathe and to make sure that there is no rot. If you're buying into a wood frame building that hasn't been waterproofed, that is a massive cost, upwards hundreds of thousands of dollars depending on the size. And if you don't have a robust CRF, a contingency reserve fund from those strata fees, you could be patched with a massive special levy. Number 3 on the list is overlooking the overall footprint of the strata you're buying into. We already went over the differences between a wood frame and a concrete building, but if you would think of how they are designed, a wood frame building typically between 3 to 6 stories, but they will have a long and deep footprint because they don't have the FSR, floor space ratio, to go high, but they have more of a land mass. Concrete builds, because they can build higher, they can be built on a lot smaller of a footprint. So how does that affect you, and how can you think of what that will do to your property value? This in most cases is something to think about way down the line if you're talking about a strata wind up and selling that property to a developer. With all these land use changes that we've seen across the province, and with development and future development, knowing and understanding the footprint can have a direct value of, or future value of, what that property is going to be worth down the line. If you're buying into an older wood frame building, say in Kitsilano or Fairview, they have these massive footprints and very underutilized and often close to transit hubs. When they are rezoned, that land is going to be worth a lot of money. It's going to be worth a lot more than a little smaller square in a place that has already been densified. Obviously, land is king, and the more land that you have to a strata, the more valuable it will be to owners. The other thing to keep in mind, unit entitlement. If you were to do a strata wind up, and that means if the strata is wanting to sell to a developer, they need 80% of owners to vote yes. Then it is decided by unit entitlement. They'll take the purchase price, divided it by the size of the units, and then you'll get your piece of the pie. Also, with a wood frame type of building, not only is the land footprint usually larger than a typical concrete build, but you'll have less residents as well, so you'll have a lot more money coming back to you. But that's a consideration if you're buying into an older building. If you're looking at newer condos, this is something that's going to be a lot further down the line. It's something that a lot of buyers don't think about. I know I was just selling some units in Fairview, and that was a selling feature that I would push towards buyers. It was an older unit and the footprint was absolutely massive. It was really close to a SkyTrain station. We know that there's proximity. If you have proximity within 800 meters to a transit hub, you get even higher densification for future development with this future NDP government. So these are things to understand and how that will affect your asset down the line. Number 4 on the list is amenities. I know amenities are important to a lot of buyers out there, but you need to do your research and understanding how it's going to affect you, mostly with your strata fee. If you're looking at complexes that have a pool and a ton of amenities, your strata fee is going to be a lot higher, especially if you have a pool. So these are things that you need to understand. Not only are you paying to use these items, but there's a lot of maintenance tied to those areas as well to continue to be able to run the pool, for example, or if they need to repair the pool. These are costs that are going to be built in and are going to continue to increase over time. So if amenities are important to you, you have to make sure that you use them, because the common tale here is when I'm showing properties, or if I'm selling them, or even with stratas that I've been involved with and I've lived in, you know, the gym barely gets used, the courtyards barely gets used. Yes, you have a concierge, but they're not doing your dry cleaning for you. They're not doing a lot other than receiving packages and helping with keys. So a lot of these items are nice to have, but you got to make sure that you understand how it's going to affect you and your bottom line when it comes to the financial component of amenities, because they are not free. Number 5 on the list is the overall size of the unit. Obviously, within our initial consultation, which you can book in the description below, I'm going to ask you, what is the size of unit that you're ideally looking for? But keep in mind, size does not matter. Floor plan is what really matters, because you can have a floor plan that fits within your parameters, which actually has a lot less living space than a smaller unit. So it's really important to understand the types of units and buildings that you're looking into. There is a lot of wasted space in condos with hallways. You can get into the entryway. There can be a 10 or 15 foot long hallway right off the bat when you enter the building, and you multiply that by around the 3 foot width, and you've already wasted 45 square feet. If you're looking at a 1-bedroom condo, there's about 10% of your condo space wasted just in that one hallway. Other things to consider: curved buildings. You know, we have those cylindrical sky rises. With those types of units, the floor plans aren't great. You can't really put your furniture anywhere. They can have slanted walls to try to create some type of room dynamics within that, which can create some really awkward living spaces with some triangular type portions where you may have your living space. So it's really important not to really focus too much. Have a little bit broader of square footage, and then really drill down and look at the floor plans. Other things to consider to help your unit seem a little bit bigger than what it actually is the ceiling heights. If you are looking at buildings that have a 9-foot ceiling height, that can do wonders in making your space seem that much bigger. And the type of window construction. Are they a floor to ceiling type window? Also, the type of window is really important as well. Is it a floor to ceiling window? Because if that's the case and you're having a copious amount of natural light come in, that can really help with the size dynamics as well. If you're looking at a unit that's not a corner unit and you don't have a second wall that has windows, that can make it feel very much like a basement suite. So if you can really really hit it out of the park with a good floor plan, if you can hit it out the park with a higher ceiling, a corner unit, all these things can really make your unit feel that much bigger, and you can save a little bit more money because when you price out a unit, it's always priced out on a price per square foot. So if you're looking at something that's say 900 square feet and you have 60 square feet of wasted square footage in the terms of hallways or curvatures of the unit itself, you're paying for that wasted space, where you could get something that's a little bit smaller. Maybe that's a full rectangle or square floor plan where you can walk right into the unit. There's no hallway, no wasted space, and you're actually putting more money into your wallet and having that efficient floor plan. And that takes me into point number 6, that pre-sales aren't always the answer. The biggest misnomer of a pre-sale is that individuals that I talk to always think that if you buy a pre-sale, you are guaranteed to make hundreds of thousands of dollars when the building completes. That could not be further from the case. There is a lot of risk when you're buying into pre-sale. Just talk to anybody, not only here in Vancouver, but in Toronto as well. There are people that cannot afford their deposits because of the economic climate that we're in. The rates have climbed so far above what any of these buyers thought were possible that they just cannot complete on these units. And there is some major risk you're putting yourself into. If you can't complete on a unit, not only will the developer keep your deposit, and it can be as high as 20 to 25% of the purchase price, they can also sue you for damages. So in this current economic climate, like in Toronto, in cases here in Vancouver, if it's a bad market and the developer can't sell that unit, they are going to sue you as well. So you have to be really careful of the advice that you're getting from family, from friends, from your realtor, to really understand if this is a good play, because for some, it can be a great play. For myself, I've purchased 4 pre-sale properties myself and always bet on myself that I can always increase my earnings to be able to afford these units in the future. But if you can't make that work, there is going to be some issues there for you. Some other things to consider when purchasing a pre-sale is that you are paying usually a premium for that product. You will notice though that they can ebb and flow, and if you are patient, you can sometimes get a really good deal on a pre-sale if they have a few remaining units left and the developer needs that money to move forward to the next project. But if you're first in line, you're usually paying a premium for those units, and there are a lot of people here in Vancouver and in certain buildings where they paid a premium a couple years ago and the product just has not increased. And not only have they paid that premium and values haven't increased, you also have 5% GST. Anything above the benchmark for first-time home buyers of 1.1 million, you will be paying 5% of the purchase price in GST to the government for a brand new unit. But you do get some securities in there. Like a new car, there is a 2, 5, and 10-year warranty. You also have a 1-year essentially bumper to bumper warranty with the developer. So anything like nail pops or grout that's starting to crack or doors that are not closing anymore, those items are all going to be addressed in that first year. And then after that first year, your protection starts to lessen. At the 2-year mark, it's more on mechanical systems. It's not on drywall pops or anything on the surface. Keep in mind that your appliances will be on an appliance warranty. It's not included in this 2, 5, and 10. And something to consider too, with your home warranty, you need to understand your policy and how much coverage you have if there are future issues that you need to take to the developer, and you need help with your home warranty provider as well. But you do get some security. You get a pristine brand new unit. If it's built by a reputable company, you can do very well. But my advice to anyone who buys property, unless you're a professional flipper, you should be trying to stay in those units at a minimum of 5 years. If you're trying to sell anything in less than that time, there's just too many factors at play where you can start to lose out. When I started buying my pre-sale properties, you could buy them at 5% down. You could buy as many as you wanted in a unit. There was no flipping rules or assignment rules at the time. That was back in 2013, 14, 15, in around that time frame. But times have changed now. It's a lot stricter. There's a lot of people that made a ton of money in those early 2010 years. They have really tightened up those regulations. And even with assignments, if, for example, you can't close on it and you know you can't close on it and you want to sell your contract, which is called an assignment, sometimes there's rules within the documentation that states that you can't assign it at all, or if you assign it, you have to give a percentage of the profits back to the developer. So it's really important to have representation. Don't go to a pre-sale unit. Don't buy it to the sales rep. You need a realtor to represent you so they can review the contract and make sure there's negotiations that can happen on price, on upgrades, even parking stalls. You need to understand where your parking stall is. Is it a small car spot? Is it a spot that's going to be affected by an HVAC unit or low sprinklers? All these things need to be kept in mind, and that's why you need a realtor. book that description with me if you're looking at a pre-sale, because I can help you with that as well. Finally, number 7 on the list is skipping your due diligence. When you're going through a purchase, I always highly recommend getting an inspection and not using your dad or your uncle or a friend, getting someone who's completely independent of the transaction to be able to give you a baseline. Some of the pushback I get is that because it's such a small little unit, it's not worth having an inspection. You can't look into other units, but I disagree with that. The main reason you're getting an inspection is to get a baseline report for time of closing. If all of a sudden something is not working and it was identified as working at time of inspection, you now have an independent report that you can look back to try to get some sort of remedy if there has been issues. Also, when you're buying into a strata, yes, you're just buying into one little piece of a big puzzle. A good inspector will have a drone, they'll fly it up to the roof, they'll go into the mechanical room, they'll go into the parkade, and they'll have experience looking at some of these other building components that you need to have a proper look into, that some family friend or uncle may not have that experience to do that. An inspection is not a significant price to pay for some peace of mind. Case in point, the home that I live in now was a brand new duplex. Even on a brand new unit, I plead to you that you just get an inspection done. We had several items that were identified and helped us getting $30,000 back from the developer to remedy these issues. So it is really important that you get that inspection and also conduct that due diligence. If you are getting sent strata documents, read them from your realtor. You have a big part to play. I know it's a lot of work. I know it's boring, but you need to understand the health of the building. I use an artificial intelligence software that really breaks things down in a very easy way. So it takes all the hundreds of pages of documents and puts it in a very nice menu where you can just click on anything that has been identified or flagged by the AI. You can click on if there's been window issues or mold issues or strata fee increases, and not only will it highlight it for you, when you click on that section, it'll bring you right to the particular document and the strata meeting minute. So it's really important that you have all the tools when you are buying into a strata, because there's so many things at play here. It's not a cut and dry, easy piece of cake. So make sure if you're needing that help, reach out to me, text me, book a call with me. I want to help you succeed here in Vancouver. I even have a couple more bonus tips for you when it comes to buying into strata. One of them is, and we've kind of touched on it before, parking spaces. Pre-sale, super important. You can change parking spaces. You want to make sure that you have a proper stall. It will hurt you when you sell your unit if you have a really small car space, or if you have a parking stall that's located down in P5 away from all the elevators. Trying to get something close to an elevator in a regular size spot, really important. If you have 2 parking stalls, trying to get them side by side is also key. I also like to buy into boutique, smaller concrete builds. They usually have some extras such as elevators, and elevators are something that a lot of people don't think of either. When you have someone moving into a strata, and there can be multiple people doing it at the end or beginning of the month, and it can tie an elevator down. If you only have one elevator in the building, that can be very problematic. If you're living on the 4th or 5th or 6th floor or even higher, you're gonna have to walk your groceries up. In the buildings that I look for, having a minimum of 2 elevators. If it's a larger building, having a minimum of 3 elevators is really key so that it doesn't deter your daily life. It can be extremely frustrating when you're trying to go in and out with groceries or doing your life and all the elevators are completely bogged down. So that's something to keep in consideration as well. I hope you found the information here helpful. These are some insider tips from the experience that I have buying personally for myself, and as well as helping others buy and sell real estate in Vancouver. My name is Kyle Mark, your Vancouver realtor. Make sure you book that description call with me. It's in the description below, and let's get you on the path of real estate success. Take care.